Hi everyone, and welcome back to the MFT YouTube channel. It's Karolyn here, and I'm popping in today to share another interactive card process video with you. When I saw the new Kissing Booth stamp set from this month's release, I knew I wanted to actually make two characters kiss each other, and I accomplished that by jimmy rigging the double slider loop slots dynamics, and I can't wait to show you how. I'll give you a quick rundown of the products that I used today. First, I used several images and a sentiment from the Kissing Booth stamp set, as well as the coordinating dies. I used the zebras from the Zippy Zebras stamp set. I used the largest of the two double slider loop slots dynamics, and the second to the largest channel die from the spin and slide channel dynamics. I used the pull tab and the collar dies from the meet in the middle dynamics, and I used two of the Grassy heels dies. I started with a Blue Breeze panel trimmed to 4 inches by 5 1/4 inches, and I cut 2 strips of Limelight cardstock using the Grassy heels dies. I want the mechanism to be hidden behind the grass, so I'm aligning the two grass pieces at the bottom of the image panel, and I'll use my grid pad to mark the top of the grass. This will help me position the double slider loops die and the slider channel die so that they're below the grass line and hidden. I'll just secure the two dies in place with some washi tape and then die cut them off camera. You can see when I remove the dies that I'm left with two slots on the left and the right and a channel, but we won't be using the channel in the typical way. I'll be showing you how a little later on in the video. Now I'm temporarily positioning the two grass pieces onto the image panel, and then I'll position the Kissing Booth die cut on top of that. By the way, I stamped the Kissing Booth onto Kraft cardstock using milk chocolate dye ink. Once I secured the Kissing Booth in place with washi tape, I placed the die on top of the die cut, and I'm tracing the inside aperture with my pencil. I do it this way so that I can see where to place the die once I remove the Kissing Booth and grass die cuts. I'll align the Kissing Booth die and secure it in place with washi tape. And then I'll place them onto my die cutting platform, and I'll position the top plate so that I only cut the top portion and the aperture of the booth. And then I'll run it through my die cutting machine off camera. Once I remove the die, you can see that the aperture is completely cut and the Kissing Booth is only partially cut. I want to keep the Kissing Booth intact with the panel, so I'll tape those portions on the back of the panel with some Scotch tape. When I adhere the Kissing Booth die cut, the cut lines will be completely disguised. I tried to find a rectangle die in my stash that would cut that aperture without having to cut the booth again, but I wasn't successful in my search, so this was an alternative, and I'd say it worked perfectly. Next, I trimmed a piece of plastic from a Ziploc bag that I had in my stash. This is the perfect strength for the loop that we'll create with it. I just used my trimmer to cut a 1/2 inch strip and then cut out the zipper portion with my scissors. Then I'll slide the ends of the strip through both slots and I'll pull them tight, making sure to leave a little bit of slack, and then I'll secure them together with my Tim Holtz tiny attacher. I'll trim off the excess strip with my scissors. I love this tiny attacher because the base of the stapler is thin enough to slide under the loop to get a good grip on what I'm securing together, and it staples the cutest little staples. It's probably one of my most loved tools that I use often and can say that no crafty space should be without one. Okay, now I want to attach the pull tab to the loop, so I'll align and position it over the top of the loop, making sure to have it extend about 1/4 inch beyond the right edge, and then I'll secure it to the pull tab with my tiny attacher. You can see I'm holding it in place with my thumb and middle finger, and then I'll slide the loop down a bit so that I can get the tiny attacher under the loop easily. Once secured, I'll trim off the excess pull tab with my scissors. Next, I want to keep the pull tab aligned, and my favorite way to do that is with what I call a collar. I die cut it from text weight printer paper, and I folded it on the provided score lines, and I'll secure the ends together with liquid glue. But I have a bit of a dilemma. I didn't leave enough room on the right side of the loop to adhere the collar to the image panel as I usually do. So I slid the collar under the loop and secured the ends together on top of the pull tab. And then I'll add more liquid glue to the back of the collar and we'll secure that to the image panel. You can see that when I pull on the pull tab, it still moves because the loop slides through the collar, but it also keeps the pull tab aligned. I love finding new ways to make things work in an unexpected way. Next, I want to stamp the sentiment onto the grass before I assemble everything. I've placed the shorter of the two grass pieces into my mini MISTI, and I'm inking up the sentiment from the Kissing Booth stamp set with some Sweet Tooth pigment ink. You'll often see me using Sweet Tooth pigment ink to heat emboss white sentiments, And I do this because I feel like I get a more opaque and white end result. If I use Versamark instead, I find that the stamping is a bit more muted and not quite as crisp. I love the end result with the white pigment ink. Okay, while I was blathering on, I added some tape runner adhesive to the back of the sentiment grass, and I'm adhering it to the other grass die cut. I've added tiny strips of foam tape adhesive on both sides of the loop slots, as well as a piece just below the loop. Then I'll position the two zebras onto my grid pad, so that when I place the image panel over the top of them, their faces are peeking out from the aperture. I'll temporarily secure them in place with some washi tape. I cut two strips of acetate that measure 1/4 inch by 1.5 inches, and I've added a piece of 1/4 inch double-sided tape to one end. I'll remove the liner paper from the double-sided tape, and I'll stick the strip to the front loop so that it aligns vertically with the right zebra. Then I'll push the other end of that acetate strip through the slider channel towards the back of the zebra die cut, and I'll just leave that as is for now. I'll take the other acetate strip, remove the liner paper from the double-sided tape, and I'll adhere that to the back loop. You can see that I slipped the strip between the pull tab and the loop, making sure that the strip sticks to the loop and not the pull tab. Here, I'm adding two small foam squares between the acetate strip and the die cut, and I'll do this with both zebras. The foam squares help give the characters a bit of clearance so that they can move more freely. And I just wanted to mention that a lot of the steps that I take when I create an interactive card like this, I've learned from trial and error. There's no exact science to it, just lots of practice. Once I've secured both zebras to their corresponding acetate strips, I can trim off the excess acetate with my scissors. And then I'll flip the panel over and carefully remove the washi tape with my tweezers. And a quick tug on the pull tab shows that everything is working perfectly. For now. Okay, now I can remove the liner paper from that double-sided tape that I put on the front of the image panel earlier, and I'll secure the assembled grass die cuts to that. Next, I'll secure the kissing booth to the image panel with more foam squares, making sure to place it directly over the other die cut lines. Now I can decorate the kissing booth with a few of the accessory die cuts from the kissing booth stamp set that I stamped, colored, and die cut off camera. In order to keep the zebras from crossing over each other too far, I'll pull the pull tab as far as I want it to go, and then I'll add a piece of foam tape to the pull tab just to the right of the collar location. This will act as a stopper. Okay, remember when I was talking about the whole learning by trial and error thing earlier? Well, here's an example of one of those lessons. I added foam squares to the back of the image panel, and I removed the liner paper from all the foam squares, as well as that piece of foam tape that I'm using as a stopper. In the words of Julia Roberts in Pretty Woman, big mistake. I should have left the liner paper on the stopper because the pull tab needs to be able to move, not be stuck to the card base. So I disassembled the image panel from the card base, replaced the messed up foam squares and stopper piece, and then re-adhered it to the card base. Hopefully you'll learn from my mistakes. And I should mention that I used a double layer of foam squares on the back of the image panel, again to give those zebras plenty of clearance to move. And I added a few additional details off camera. I added a bow to the zebra on the right, and I stamped the word pull on the pull tab using the interactive label stamp set. And that'll do it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed it and that you'll give this hybrid double slider loop card a try for yourself. Be sure and subscribe to the MFT YouTube channel so that you don't miss any of the great content that we offer. And until next month, have an awesome day.